Today we have Ann Hahn, and I'm Bill Arndt. And as I was saying before, it's tornado that we're going to talk about is the one that hit Hutchinson in 1951. And it started in my farm area west of town, ended up in Ann's farm area northeast of Hutchinson. We're going to talk about these tornadoes, and by the way, it's also Tornado Awareness Day today. We're recording this, and it's something that everybody should be very alert to. Anyway, I was a farm boy up west of Hutchinson, Lynn Township. These tornadoes, at the time it hit us, we were baling hay. And all at once my dad turned around in the middle of the field and took off for home. I was trying to hold on to the hay rack with the bale, and I couldn't understand what it was, but it was very, very dark. That's all I can remember. And we got up to the place, and my dad says, "Did you see the tornado?" I said, "No." Well, when we hit the place, wind was blowing in every different direction, but we had no damage to our farm site. I was saying there was two tornadoes. One was about a half-mile south of us. There it took a hay loader belonging to Raymond Pop, and it rolled that hay loader for 3/4 of a mile. You can imagine it was nothing but a ball of junk. Our hay field ended up in the cornfield where we had corn planted. Now this is early June, we just started cultivating, and there was no longer, you could cultivate that hay, or cultivate the corn because of the hay was scattered throughout the cornfield. It then proceeded east, and I looked for it. I've got pictures taken with the little brownie camera showing two tornadoes. They were both white color, and they came together. They came together at South Grade. There was willow trees, and by the way, if our house would have been there at the time, it would have been totally destroyed because we built a house exactly where the tornado joined forces. There was about 300 feet wide. There was big willow trees, and these were twisted and gnarled up. There's still a couple of the root systems growing there today. Now that's a long time, but it shows how they were twisted and tangled up. Then it proceeded northeast, hit the Jim Enewolson farm, Earl McDonald's farm, and then it made a more of an east turn, and where the new high school is, Roberts lived there, and their house was damaged, roof was tore up and that, and then it proceeded across Hutchinson, lifting up, coming down, South Park, North Park where the high school was, tore many, many trees up in them two parks, and it took the roof off S.R. Knutson's house, which is next to the historical house. And then it proceeded across Main Street, hit Kraft Foods, and took the 90-foot chimney down, proceeded up the hill. There was some damage there, but then it proceeded out to northeast of Hutch. Now I'm going to let you hear from Ann Hahn. She's a survivor. She's seen the tornado from the inside. Ann, tell us about that day.
Well, I was out, this is 1951. That was the year before my 9th grade. And I was outside with my mother. We were working out in the yard on our farm. My sister Jane was in the house, and my dad was over at my uncle's making hay. Anyway, my mother said, "You hear that?" She said, "I think there's a storm coming. I think we should get the cows in the barn." So we did. We went out in the pasture and got the cows in the barn, put them in their stanchions. And she said, "You go in, you go to the house, go in the base, get your sister, and get in the basement." Our basement steps came downstairs in the southwest corner, thankfully. And she said, "I'm going to go upstairs and close some windows. And my dad, I just saw my dad coming down the driveway with his hay rack and tractor. And she was hollering at him to get in the basement. And so I got down there, and my sister Jane got down there, and Mother told us to stand against the wall, to stay against the wall. And she was there, and I thought I heard my dad. It was wood steps. I thought I heard him coming down the steps, but I didn't know. The next thing I knew, I looked up and I saw the sky. The house was gone. But my dad was standing there. He had made it down there. My mother had fallen over my sister, and my dad just stood there and said, "Thank you, God, we're all alive." And we were just, in shock. The sun was still out. It was very still. And the steps were still there. And the house had gone up in the air and came back down and cleared the basement and fell upside down to the east of the foundation of the basement. So we started climbing up the steps. We got up the steps and got out. I saw the barn twirling above the treetops. It was still in one piece. Our buildings were, the house was first, and then, the tornado traveled from west to east. It was the house, and then it was the granary, and the garage, and the machine shed, the chicken house, and then the barn. And we just kind of stood around and looked. And my sister and my mother had glass cuts all over them, and they were kind of starting to bleed. The wind had pounded that dirt into us. We looked pretty dirty and pretty shabby, I think. And my dad said, "Well, I think we better get to the doctor." And so our car was still sitting in the garage. It was untouched. It was just sitting there all by itself. And my dad went over and tried to start it, and it didn't start. Now that's unusual. My dad kept gassing that car at all times. And I think the tornado sucked the gas out of the car. And we just kind of stood there and thought, well, now what do we do? By that time, a neighbor who had lived to the south of us was there. He said, "I followed that funnel." And I thought, oh boy, somebody's going to be in trouble. And his name was Remmel, Mr. Remmel. And he said, "I'll take you in." So we went in to Dr. Shepard's office. He was our family doctor at the time, and got checked over. And then Mr. Remmel brought us back. And by that time, the place was crawling with people. We were still in shock. We didn't know what was going on. I just remember a lady was going through a dresser drawer. And I remember going up to her and saying, "What are you doing?" She said, "Oh." And she left. We thought, well, we're going to have to do something here. We had no place to live. We had no clothes. We had nothing left because everything was gone. My grandparents lived across in the next section, and they weren't farming at the time, so they had buildings that were empty, like a barn and a chicken house. So we moved in with them. And we moved, the neighbors moved the cattle over to their barn. And
Did you lose any cattle then?
we didn't lose any cattle, and we didn't lose any chickens or hogs that I know of. They crated up the chickens, and they herded the cows over to Grandpa's barn and took the chickens into the chicken house. I don't know how they got the hogs over there. But anyway, that's what happened. And our dog was missing. Our dog's name was Rover. And Jane, my sister Jane, 5 years younger than I, she wanted her doll. She didn't know where her doll was. We found her doll. It was underneath the couch. The couch was tipped over. She found her doll, and we didn't find Rover until maybe 2-3 days later. Here comes Rover running down the driveway. So the wind must have picked up Rover and taken him wherever, but he found his way home. So we really weren't hurt physically, and I don't think we lost any animals. We lost our home, and we lost all our, personal belongings. In those days there wasn't a tornado drill or tornado warning. There really wasn't any warning. And how my mother must have known. She says, there's a tornado coming. It sounded like a train. And that's our story about the tornado.
That's the only thing I can also remember is this, the cloud to the west, the wall cloud, was very, very dark.
And it was still.
Before the tornado.
Except that rumbling. Before it came, it was very still.
So how much stuff did you find later on?
Well, the neighbors were really great. They came over and helped us clean up, and we didn't find too much that we could save. Thank heavens we could move into a house that had furniture in it and appliances and stuff. I don't think we saved any furniture or any appliances. And after the tornado left, it rained. So, and it was a terrible smell. I can still remember that smell that it left. Everything smelled awful.
Because of the insulation and inside.
It was just it was kind of an ugly smell on everything. No, we did not save much. Our insurance didn't amount to much because you don't usually insure all your buildings. You don't think that all your buildings are going to be destroyed by a storm or by a fire all at the same time.
Raymond Pop, they were making hay, so we had the barn doors open. It was just funny, it didn't take the barn, but one of the doors got tore off. And several weeks later, he was up there trying to get the door back on. He fell, and he broke his leg real bad. So that was an injury occurring with the tornado at that time. But other than that, I don't remember anything. Another thing we're missing completely, the carnival, it was Water Carnival weekend coming up. And the water carnival was being set up on 4th Avenue North along the river, and there was no damage done there. Kraft Foods got hit. There was a mark on the west side of Kraft Foods where a tree had hit it. And that's about it. And if I was thinking today, if that tornado would have hit today in that same path, there had been many, many houses destroyed. At the time of the tornado, there was Robert's house was the furthest west in Hutchinson, and many, many houses could have been destroyed at that time.
You know what I remember? My dad had, of course, bib overalls on, and for some reason he had his billfold in that front pocket. That was gone. And we found out later, our neighbors found whatever was in his billfold and the billfold, the stuff that was in it, the cash and his identification stuff, was scattered all over. They found it in the fields in their farms. And they even found the billfold.
That's the cool,
you know, people don't believe that, like the no gas in the car, or a rover coming back after 3 days.
Yes, that's on you. I was in one tornado. I was, I think, 13 years old. We were driving Minneapolis. My dad and my mother and my brother and sister. My sister was just a little baby really yet. And just east of Hollywood Station. We were going east on Highway 7. And I can remember my dad said, "There's a tornado." And he tried to stop the car, and it hit the car. Well, you were in the car, you could feel the thing moving. And when the tornado went past, my sister's blanket was totally mud inside the car. Mm-hmm. But we were facing west on Highway 7. Mm-hmm. We were going east. It was on the other side of the road. Now, other tornadoes we've had in Hutchinson area is the one that hit 3M and the fairgrounds. And it bounced across the city of Hutch. Second time it hit Kraft Foods, they had a water tower. And they had it was a wood water tower. And the odd thing about this, my uncle had been out to our house, and he was crossing Main Street Bridge when he was hit by that tornado and that lumber from that old water tower. Next morning he calls, he says, "I got 4 flat tires in my car sitting in the garage." There's that water tower, we found scratches in the rear window that was peeled upward instead of down, and he ran over these boards and had flat tires. And that tornado was a very small tornado. I was farming the land just east of 3M at the time, and I found 2 pieces of tin. Now, this tornado was completely different than most tornadoes. They move from south or west to the east. This one moved from the southeast to the northwest. These 2 pieces of tin came from the Axe Farm, which was located just west of Glanco. There was the only farm that had yellow tin on their buildings. And they were laying just on the east side of the Crow River where the tornado crossed and hit 3M and took the commercial building down in the fairgrounds, destroying all Linder's buses at that time. And then it went across Hutch, bounced across. But it was only 25 feet wide, where the trees were wiped out totally on the east side of the river. So, but it had a lot of power to it. So tornadoes do odd things.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't mention this one here, but just a week before the tornado hit Hutch, it was a pretty clear day, and a rope tornado showed up, totally white. I was cultivating corn. I came home real quick to get the cattle or the calves out of the barn. I don't know. That's something that bothered me because I'd seen a barn that had been laid flat on a whole herd of cattle out by Cosmos. It was a neighbor to my uncle's out there. I got the cattle out of the barn, and this rope tornado was totally white in a pretty clear sky, and the tail was just wagging like a dog's tail until it just destroyed itself. So that's weird things tornadoes do. I remember when St. Peter got hit. St. Peter got hit in the evening, and we took a busload of people from our church down to St. Peter. I parked the bus 1 block from where my wife's uncle lived, and I did not recognize the area I was in. But we were assigned this area to clean up, and this lady had this big square house. And you talk about glass. She had a porch all the way around, glassed in. And the furniture she had out in the porch was so injected with glass that we had to wear leather gloves just to haul them out to put in the dumpster. It was something that we had to clean up real quick before somebody got hurt there. But that was a big bad tornado that destroyed a lot of stuff in St. Peter.
You know, back to our tornado, I remember you asked if any of the cattle were hurt or dead. I remember one cow was still walking around she was still in the stanchion. She was walking around out there, no buildings left, but she was still in her stanchion. The other cows weren't, but she was.
That's the odd things.
Yeah.
Well, the other tornado that hit very close to here was the one that hit Buffalo Lake. That did a massive amount of damage up at Buffalo Lake. And houses and churches and elevators, everything was destroyed up there. And it's supposed to hit Lake Alley. We went out to my daughter's to check it out. On the way home, the second tornado, which came from Cosmos area, and ended up just about McLeod County line. We seen it because of lightning. The funnel was so perfect, the lightning showed it up. And evidently we was just east of it. It must have lifted. But the next day when we went out there, we could see exactly where we were and how close we were to this tornado. Oh, I want to ask you this question. Did you have ear pressure, like altitude change?
Like you would on an airplane?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that.
That's what I remember when we was in the car.
I remember a vacuum.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it affecting our ears.
That's what I remember in the car that time, and your ears felt like they were, you changed the altitude real quick. Mm-hmm. So anything else you got some old clippings from?
I just had the clipping that was in the Hutch Leader.
But there was a lot of good reporting them days. I mean, I looked at the historical leader at the museum, and page after page after page of stories.
In this article it said, new home wrecked by tornado, and it gives it the Charles Lyons home. He's standing there before his new home on Lincoln Avenue. But it doesn't say what they did. I think they must have taken the house down.
Picture
doesn't-
looks pretty destroyed.
Yeah. This one, it was whipped off its foundation and dumped on its side. It wasn't taken completely off the foundation like ours was. But it's totaled.
So these are things, we're lucky nobody ended up seriously hurt.
No.
And you are the survivor
Yeah.
from the inside of a tornado, which is pretty rare. So want to thank you, Ann, for coming in, and we talked tornado, and be aware of tornadoes today. We still can, we get them, and some of them are very strong.
You know, to this day, I'm still scared of when the winds come up. And I remember when the kids were little, if a wind would come up, I'd say, we've got to go in the basement. I don't think you ever live that out. You never get over that fear of winds, ever, again. Just a wind in the trees that would come up, and we've got to hit the basement. Okay,
And
thank you.
that's where I'm very bad at. I want to watch it. My wife says, get down, get in the basement or something. But I like to see what's coming. So anyway, thank you, Ann, and hope this gives a little history of Hutchinson and tornadoes that we've had here in the local area. And just be aware when the sirens blow. They just blew now a few minutes ago. They were having the warnings.
We had no warnings.
No, some days we didn't have any warnings. There was no radio stations or anything else in this area, so no radar to chase them down. And if you seen it come across the field, you headed for the basement. Bring us any other news we have of tornadoes, and we'll talk about them too. Anyway, thank you.